put our money where our mouth is about caring about the supply chain, and we're going to give away the work instruction module. Like there are
Wow.
several successful companies that do nothing other than sell that as a product, and ours is absolutely as capable, if not more capable than them. Uh, and we're going to take the plunge, and we're doing it not because of our wonderful hearts and willingness for the whole mankind to grow. It is a piece of it, frankly, because it should be charged for. But
Right.
we want to take all the friction out so teams can take a step.
Okay.
Just start something. One of the biggest problems in this industry is you feel like you have to plot out the next 5 years of what you're going to need before you can do anything. You're so
Sure.
worried about going down the wrong path and getting stuck. Well, we're going to re-envision that for you.
Welcome to the MFG Connector, your gateway to the future of manufacturing. Our mission is to empower manufacturers with the insights and latest innovations transforming the industry. Each week, we bring you cutting-edge case studies, in-depth demos, and expert interviews focused on the tools, technology, and techniques driving manufacturing forward. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and today we're joined by Ryan Kuhlenbeck, co-founder and CEO of Pico. Ryan's impressive career includes stints at General Motors, Tesla, and Alta Motors, where he gained firsthand experience with the challenges posed by the manufacturing digital divide. After founding Pico in 2019, Ryan set out to address the unique needs of small to mid-sized manufacturers who make up 98% of the market. His vision is a future where manufacturers can access a fully connected supply chain, eliminating the inefficiencies and errors that plague traditional operations. Pico is at the forefront of digital manufacturing technology, providing solutions that automate error proofing and enhance productivity. With features like digital work instructions, connected tools, seamless system integrations, and robust traceability, Pico MES is transforming the factory floor. Their platform is designed to make it easy for operators of all skill levels to follow detailed instructions, connect isolated tools, and leverage real-time data for continuous improvement. In today's episode, we'll explore how Pico is revolutionizing factory operations, discuss real-world case studies, and get a hands-on demo of their powerful digital solutions. Whether you're looking to improve efficiency or overcome the challenges of manual processes, this episode is packed with actionable insights. Let's dive in and see the future of manufacturing on the Manufacturing Connector. Hello, Ryan. Welcome back to one of my shows. This is the second show you've done with me, so I'm really happy to have you here. Welcome back. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jim. Excited to get a chance to hang out and chat a bit. So,
Absolutely. Well, and this show's a little bit different, right? The show's different than the last one. The last time we talked about your story, you were my very first Riverside guest. So the very first video episode that I have out there, go check it out. I think it was episode like 40 or 38. So anybody watching, go check that out on the other show on the Manufacturing Culture podcast. But Ryan, give us a really brief background on you, who you are, and how you got to found Pico, and then give us some background on Pico itself.
I'll try to keep the Ryan portion of this as minimum as possible. So
Yeah, we're here to talk about
everybody.
Pico, man.
I mean, I grew up in the Midwest in Illinois in a small town, kind of right smack in the middle of the state, manufacturing town. Got into hot rods early as a kid with friends of mine, and that led me into engineering school from there so that I could go work at a car company, which I did. Spent 10 years with General Motors, almost a dozen launch teams throughout time there across a bunch of different factories that they had. Chased a girl, didn't work out, ended up at Tesla afterwards. So I left there for the coast, spent 10 years in California, including a chance to run a motorcycle factory for 3.5 years and test out some of these theories. Then, took the plunge into Pico in 2019 with two co-founders and kind of haven't looked back. But
That,
yeah,
that's awesome, man. And so tell us about that founding of Pico. What was the problem you guys saw that you wanted to solve with Pico?
yeah, so I would you can pick any of those companies, but anytime you're in the automotive industry, you can design some really awesome stuff. Like I was building V-Series Cadillacs and SS Chevrolets when I was at GM in the performance division. That you are only as good as the suppliers to you. Like you can design the really coolest stuff, and our first CTSV had Brembo brakes on it. It was the first time Brembo
Wow,
was brought into an automotive company, right? You need
very
that
cool.
supply base. All the casting shops that feed Brembo and the tiers to the tiers to the tiers. And then as we got more mature in the career, it just became really obvious there's this technology that large factories can bring to bear that small factories just cannot access, or at least not efficiently access.
Yeah.
So everything from just think about like DC nut runners and how easy, every GM factory has had a automated torque tool sitting on their lines for decades now.
Yeah.
And you go to the tiers, the supply base, and it just doesn't exist at the level it needs to. It's getting there, and we wanted to do something about it. So instead of creating a company and going after the enterprise, screw it, we're going to do the hard thing and try to take some of these lessons we had learned in low cost applications, high quality, still has to be 5/9 reliable, right?
Yeah.
99.999. No one cares why the factory is down. They expect it to never be down, right? Like there's no
Right.
excuse, but bring it packaged in a way where small teams could execute it. It was easy to learn, it's affordable, and it has high impact. And we've been on that mission for the last 5.5, almost 6 years now.
Congratulations. Pico today I think is the official launch. Today, the day that we're releasing this episode. You guys are trying a novel idea with one of your products. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, so we believe that all of this technology is a journey, right? I love it. I call it, continuous improvement is not static improvement. It's not sporadic improvement. It's continuous for a reason. It's a journey. You never actually stop is the idea. Sure, you might hit diminishing returns, but you're still on that journey. So what we've been doing quietly over the last few years has been significantly maturing all of these products. So we have a work instruction portion. We have connected tools. We can connect into ERP systems or PLM systems or some of these business system integrations, custom software integrations for those that have created things themselves. But we've made it modular. And this is where we're kind of diverging from the pack now.
Yeah.
If you want to buy work instructions, more power to you. If that's all you needed, you're like, hey, I got everything else under control. I like your interface better. Let's go with that. If you want connected stations and you wanted to try to integrate into your existing system, maybe you have an ERP driven shop floor for some reason. All right, we can do it. It might be a one-off integration, and then you can run for the rest of your time, have full access to the library. The idea is, how do you make it so people can buy the chunk they need, and then they have access? It's one of my favorite words lately, is access to everything else, so they don't have to worry about complex integrations in the future or things that are really expensive. They're like, oh, new flavor of, laser engraver came out. I want that. Click. And all they have to do is buy that laser engraver, and we've already done the software. We can drive it. We can manage its calibrations and things like that. Well, we're going to put our money where our mouth is about caring about the supply chain, and we're going to give away the work instruction module. So we're going to...
That's awesome, man.
Hopefully change how we look at this, and maybe we can get, instead of 10% of the supply base with a digital backbone, let's get it up to a digital shop floor backbone. Let's get it up to 80-90% by the end of the decade.
That would be amazing. So let's talk about some use cases, right? Some case studies. Tell us about some success stories where Pico's been implemented, whether it's this free product or on the work instruction side or any of the Pico products. Tell us some of those success stories.
Yeah, there's fun. We actually have gotten some manufacturers to allow us to talk about it publicly, which is nice. So there's some published...
like use their names?
Yeah, there's actual published cases. I know, exciting.
Cool.
They're on our website, but we'll bump into some of them here and there. We point to these kind of things over and over again a little bit, but that's again because of NDAs, unfortunately. But we have an RV manufacturer up in northern Indiana. It's an interesting company. That industry as a whole is really interesting. What they'll
Can
invest in
only
and what they
imagine.
won't.
Yeah.
But they had an issue where they had a safety critical fastener, and it required a really specialized tool. This air over hydraulic, like kind of quasi DC tool. It had transducer feedback, so it told you the torque it hit.
Interesting.
Pulse tool. Yeah, this thing was wild. It's 25 grand. It's expensive. Anyway, they needed that tool for a very specific operation. That was the only tool available for it. And they needed a work instruction system to drive it because there's like a dozen versions of chassis rolling down that line. And so in order for the tool to be configured for the right count and torque, as well as all of the other things that the operator needed to be guided through around that, they had deployed Pico, and it was an issue for them. I mean, they had some spills, as people do, or escapes in this world.
Yep.
So they deployed Pico really quickly. They actually ended up, well, we'll start with where they went to, but they had worker guidance systems there. It was out of the way of the operator, so it was more of like a reference. There. It made sure that they shot the correct bolts in the right sequence at the right torque every time. So we would drive the tool to the correct setup. They had to pull the trigger on it in the right sequence. As long as they did, then everything was fine, and the operator never interacted with Pico at all unless they had a question. I think there are several thousand chassis since it was deployed. 0 defects, not a single return, no fault forward, like truly
0.
Quick kill. Bang. I talked to the engineer the other day, and he's like, I don't even really go over there anymore. Talk about the 15 minutes of your day back.
Yeah.
Like that is a classic example. He's off working in a different building on the same campus on new problems because he just doesn't have to worry about that.
That's
he
amazing.
Actually deployed a really basic work instruction system, high mix environment now. So flip over a different side of their business. They got probably a couple thousand SKUs that they build on these flex tables. Well, how do you train somebody on that when your workforce turns over, quarterly, or has new attrition quarterly?
Yeah.
And you may not build something, a SKU might not come in for 9 months.
Yep.
So you don't even get the opportunity to train them on that. And so it leads to all kinds of bad behavior where time estimates for that work are poor and all they have is a drawing to follow on a complex assembly. And so he rolled in Pico, and he's just, every time a work order comes in, they would build out the work instructions for it, and then it's just there. If somebody had a question, they could modify the work instructions in 5 minutes. They still used DeWalt tools to shoot bolts, right? They were like, no, none of these are safety critical. It's not necessary to go to DC. So they kept very basic tools there, and there's just a screen. So it gives them an opportunity to do that. They increased output of that area 50%. 50, and it was from, some of it was just bad time estimates, honestly, like there's always low-hanging fruit, but a huge chunk of it was just giving feedback to the operator. Like, oh, well, that guy's, the person who built it last time was doing them every, minute and a half, and I just didn't know this technique to be able to do it in that pace. I was doing it in 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, he literally pulls his phone out, takes a video of the fast person, uploads it to the instructions, and you can just watch. Like, in the data, here's the pace of the others catching up. They may not get all the way there, but they'll get closer. And that's just free money for that company. Just bam.
Closing the gap.
Yeah, because now instead of getting, 5 work orders with 1,000 parts done that day, they got 7 work orders done. Or 8, depending on what they're building, with the same labor, the same overhead, the only thing that changes the material cost. So I'm a firm believer that it's a lot of little things adding up on top of each other that yield significant business value on the other side. We, on the other end of the spectrum, we had a different company. It's DC fast chargers. They're in a really interesting world right now, you can imagine.
I can,
ups and downs, swinging, all kinds of business fun for them. In order to capture the market when all of the fast charger money came out of the government, so we'll keep political opinions out of this one, but the you need to spool up a new factory quickly, one way or another. So how do you do that? Well, the key is not repeating work, and then finding every little gap, very, very, everything. So if you could build work instructions 5 minutes faster and you got to build 1,000 of them, that adds up.
Yeah.
Hooking up torque tools is a big deal. For others, you got to like literally go in, you have to, depending on the crappy system they're using, you might have to go into a second party software set that sets up a connector for this thing, and then okay, the primary system can only talk to this connector, it can't talk to the tool direct, and then
Sure.
you got to set up. It's just a bunch of stupid, frankly, on the other side. Our world, I talked to Tim a month ago and I asked him, how fast out of the box? If I handed you a torque tool, how fast before it's in production, including setting up the rundown, the feeds, or the speed of the spindle, the torque value, the angle, the anti-slip, the washer detect, everything out of the gate. He's like, 1 hour. You hand me a box, I'll have it in production and walk away in less than an hour. And 45 minutes of it is getting it out of the box, mounting it, and setting up those rundown parameters, right? Giving it an IP address so it'll join the network, right? And all of that. He's like, in our world, literally, it's like 2 minutes of work to punch in. I want 5 bolts on configuration 6 on this step. Right?
Wow.
Well, they had over $1 million worth of torque tools, so that adds up. And I think that's the interesting thing. So their fun stat: 200 stations, 4 months. And they captured the market. They were 6 months. They beat their competitor by 6 months to market. You know what that was worth to them? That's like hundreds of millions of dollars.
I was going to say. Please tell me it's close to $1 billion. Yeah.
Business things aside, on the other side, you could still lose a lot more than that on the other end, but it was an advantage, right? We have lots of stories like that. New factory, I believe that catalyzing events is what I call them, like kick things off. So I have a new product I need to build, or a new factory in that case, or a new person joined the team, whether typically it's a leader who's like, hey, we're not going to operate on clipboards anymore. I've seen this before. I know what to do. We're going to do these things. And then the fourth one is a new customer requirement. So this modular approach allows you to just solve that thing. I'm going to do this first step, whatever that might be, and then build up off of it over time. You can do the whole factory if you want. You can just meet that customer requirement.
All right, Ryan, let's see this puppy in action. What do you got for us? I want to see some work here.
All right. So we've got a few things that we can show off here inside of the demo. So I'm going to pull up. I like to start with the operator experience. To me, it's really important. I care about the people in these factories, and if they're treated well, I really love to watch the output. So I landed us here on one of our process selection screens. So this is what's neat about Pico. It can be as simple as I loaded up 4 processes and the operator picks what to do. We can tie this into, on the full stream on the other side, you can auto-gen this stuff out of a PLM and then have it be deployed. The only choice is what has a work order from the ERP. You can scan a barcode or an ID. It can look up what process to run and automatically start. But it can be just as simple as like, I did it manually, I loaded it up. Very easy. And then when you click into the build, there's all kinds of ways the build can start. If you're worried about consuming work orders on accident, it's a big problem when you're managing ERP connections. But it also looks something like this, right? This is our philosophy on UX UI and why we're different than others. We don't give you a blank template and say, put whatever the hell you want wherever you want. We load up a known, good, validated user interface. So this is balancing the needs of an experienced person and an inexperienced person. And so how it works is there's a primary image for the experienced person. It's like out of your corner of your eye. You're like looking at it and you're like, oh yeah, I saw the barcodes. It reminded me I got to scan 2 barcodes on this particular step. For the inexperienced person, they're like, what the hell's a barcode? What do you want me to do? So over here on the right, this is the serial number and label install, but there's a text block here that you can add yourself, or it can come in again from externals. But there's simple stuff like, in your email, you can highlight text and link out to a different website. Well, we do the same thing here, except I can link out to a PDF. So you can drop in an engineering drawing that somebody can roll through, like the one for this particular part. I can link out to additional images. This image can be annotated. There can be lines and arrows and things on the the PDF, you can circle stuff and highlight it, say, this is what I care about on this particular step. But the idea here is you're answering questions.
Yeah.
If somebody asked, what do you mean by IPA and cloth wipe? Like if you've never worked in a factory, you might not have ever seen isopropyl alcohol labeled as such and a cloth wipe. It might just be a random bottle sitting up there. But this gives you the opportunity to answer it once and never answer it again.
That's cool.
So as you hire more people, you can even link out to the main image. So what do I mean by the serial number sticker? I mean this thing. What do I mean by the info sticker? That thing. It is literally dragging boxes around on the screen that gives you the opportunity to show that. We'll get into even more features you can do over time in this thing. But
cool.
At its core, you have, communicate with me via text and links. You've got the imagery over here, and then you've got actions. So this says, before I can move on, I've got to scan these 2 barcodes. Except what's unique about Pico is we have control over things. So you can't move forward until you do this. It won't let you. If you have an integrated tool down the street, like this is a $1,500 IR torque tool, right? I can use a clamp and not let the clamp come back out of the system. You can stop a conveyor from moving or whatever it might be. You can actually error-proof in the system direct. But also, you get some really interesting benefits from this is a $50 scan tool. Right, I scan that barcode, it pops up on top there. I got a green checkbox, it logged all that information. I scanned the second one, it auto-advanced. I didn't touch that screen. So now an operator doesn't have to walk up and say, I did that, I did that, did that, did that. Well, every time they go, I did that, I did that, I did that, your cycle times are garbage. Because the system in the back end is saying, oh, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. Yep. And that's now you have to do all this fuzzy math in the background to get things to function. When you tie it to the physical world, I know when you actually scanned that barcode. So that's accurate. We can change, these are accurate and these aren't based on actions.
Wow.
You can integrate your bill of material into the system. It can be shown. It can be retracted. Like if the operator is not picking something from a rack, they probably don't care what the part number of the thing is, unless you're asking them to do something with the information. Often engineers are just putting all the documentation in front of someone. Well, if you put it in front of them at least once, they had to read it. So your choice is either they have to now read everything and understand it, or it's overwhelming and they ignore it all. Neither of those scenarios is good.
Right.
They're both bad, but this way you can balance that. So in this step, it's documentation only, get it out of the way. And if it is a pick, then put it down in the expanded. You choose the default behavior of where it lands. As you go on to a step that does have a torque action. So what's neat, this tool is now enabled. It's set up to the correct parameter set. It's ready to rock and roll. The operator didn't have to do anything. If I go back to the previous step, that sucker's locked out.
I was going to say, I remember you squeezing the trigger on that thing not even a minute ago, and I was like, oh no, his battery's dead. No, you just hadn't gotten to that step yet.
That's right. And now I can shoot the fastener. And so the idea here is I can use a smart tool to error-proof a dumb step or a non-connected step, right? Like, you can call it what you want, but like, I had to hook up that switch. There's no way for me to get feedback on that unless I put in a camera or some form of proc sense or some other thing.
Yeah.
But I can actually know that you had to tap the screen to acknowledge that you did that, because I won't turn on the torque tool until you do. Wow. I have access to that. It's just another example. The idea here isn't to force technology onto anyone. It's to enable access to it, right? To use this tool, you simply tell us the IP address of its controller. That's it. That's all the setup that's required. And then to use it in the process, you say, which of the 32 configurations do you want to use? And how many bolts would you like me to shoot? Wow. As soon as I do that, I can fire a fastener. It measures the torque and angle. It displays it right there on the screen. It keeps accurate counts. It does all of the fun stuff that these torque tools do. It can make sure I don't strip the bolts. It'll allow me to detect washers if you want to get real fancy with the thing on checking the torque curve versus an angle, how much rotate, right? If there's no washer there, I hit torque and more angle than I would if there was a chunk of steel between there. it allows you to get
Wow.
to, like 4 of 5 of these things being shot or one sort here. If I tried to advance, it's not going to let me. It says, no,
Wow.
you haven't finished yet. So it has full error proofing over the system. But it also just allows the operator, frankly, to ignore the screen like, and not pay
Yeah.
any attention to it because now they can just keep their head down if they know what they're doing and bang through all the work instructions. But, it won't let me advance because I haven't shot the QR code here yet. Beep. As soon as I do, it moves right forward. Bling. And so when I build, like we have a video online of me making hubs, I'm typing away at other parts, or I might be answering an email or whatever it is, and this system is just perfectly going, and you can watch it's like drilling holes, over and
That's
over again
amazing.
on the cycle time side of the house. But it gives you things like you can do the pattern if you want to show them a pattern. So there's a little blue light flashing here, and it'll move to 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. It's just dragging circles around.
Sure.
You can add other images. You're like, hey, this big annotation bubble here, this
Yep.
orange A, I want to show another view of what I mean by the connector being captured. It has all of these kind of functionalities integrated in just so that when that one time the problem comes up and you need to solve it, you've got a tool at your disposal to either explain how something was done, answer a question, solve a problem, error proof a process, collect some critical data the supplier, that your customer wants from you. All of these kind of items just become easier. And
One
then,
second, Ryan. I mean, that last step, you, and I'm sure you do this a lot, but you didn't even break your sentence as you were going through those 5 steps, right? You were able to, because you took that repetitive nature out of the equation so that you could focus on something else while you were doing that work, right?
yeah, it's like, so you want your operators to get to muscle memory when they are able to, right? If you have a 5 hour long, if you're building some really complicated piece of equipment, they may never get there because they're
Sure.
constantly adapting. But that's not a huge chunk of manufacturing is repetitive.
Yeah.
Uh, and the idea is to get to muscle memory because that's going to be near as fast as they can go with the desired standard process. Right? Like,
Yes.
otherwise, you're going to
Yes.
get random versions of it, and everybody has their own flavor. But then when you do that, it's like being a race car driver on a track. You know how pick your Formula One driver of choice or NASCAR or anyone else. Why are they really good? It's because only 10% of their brain is driving that car. They've been doing it for so long. The feel on their core of the G load versus the tires, like the way they hit the brakes and apply the pedals, all of that is out of pure muscle memory, and that frees up a huge chunk of their brain for strategic choice, right? How am I going to pass this person? What are my tires doing? Fuel, like how do I turn in on this particular corner different for whatever I'm trying to achieve? Well, that actually happens a little bit in the factory. And it
Got it.
happens in one of 2 ways that we make note of. One way is I can just relax a little bit. I don't have the anxiety. You take someone who maybe is returning from raising kids or coming out of a service industry and you put them in a factory, it can be very daunting to
Yeah.
think about like, oh my God, if I make a mistake and it gets to that end of line tester, they're going to yell at me.
Yep.
Well, if you back them up with a system like this, it drops that anxiety down, and if nothing else, they just won't quit. Like, and you won't have to go through the effort
Of
of
finding
finding them
somebody.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so for that side of the house, your retention numbers go up. Your satisfaction, if you ever measure it anyway, is higher for the operators. And then for a small portion of the crew, you get a little bit of a play the video game. And
Okay.
this is the rabbits that you're going to chase. So you're
Yeah.
like, hey, last time it took me a minute and a half to do that. This time I could get it down to a minute 25.
I like
Oh,
it.
I did a little minute 20. You're like, you set your targets for yourself and you're kind of pacing yourself against that. And that's where you really start to see the output start to increase.
And
And then,
do you see some, sorry to interrupt, do you see some of
oh,
your
okay.
customers gamify that out on the floor where there's competitions and awards and prizes and that kind of stuff? Is that exist
Over
with this
time.
kind of? Okay.
Yeah, usually not on day one as they're getting used to the system. There's a lot of
Sure.
fear of there's a fear of big brother that comes with this too, and you have to be careful on how you roll it out. It needs
Yeah.
to be beneficial for everyone. So one of the nice parts for the operator is they call bullshit against a target that is just never going to get hit, right?
Yeah.
They're like, I'm the top leader and I can't get to that target. There's no way anyone can. This happened in one of the factories, and they looked at it and they were like, "Oh yeah, we modified that process and never adjusted the target. You're right. We need to lower it back down." And then
Oh.
there's no hiding. So it benefits everyone when the system's in place. And then what ended up happening, you get into the culture of the companies, right? My favorite culture, one of them that I thought was really cool, was they were asking themselves and their teammates, how do I change the target from 75 to 80 and
Okay.
get everyone to go, yay? Okay, like that's really hard to do. You're asking them
Yeah.
to work harder, especially when there's a bonus for hitting target. And so their strategy, I thought really worked. It actually worked well, and I thought it was really interesting. Was your bonus is worth, I think it's up to 20% of their salary. They were very
Wow.
bonus heavy on that side. It was paid monthly, but basically the bonus was a portion of it. And so if you were able to hit target over and over and over again, then you got, it wasn't silly money. I don't think it was 20%, maybe it was 10%. But
Sure.
uh, anyway, whatever the percentage was, you got that for hitting target. But if the target went up, everybody's base wage was increased. So they took, whatever the math was, 5 more parts per hour was worth X amount in dollars to the company. Take 20% of that or whatever and peel it back to the operators and raise, quarter an hour or whatever that might be. Right?
Wow.
That's how they did it. And now because the target was higher, if they didn't hit the target, the bonus side would lower and everybody would, basically yield where they were. But
Yeah.
because they had that incentive to keep pushing it up and up and up, it just continually was going up and up and up to the point of operators going, this is at a CNC shop. Hey, wait a minute. These two cutters are really similar to each other. And the guy's like, how'd you know that? He's like, well, they look really similar. I was staring at the machine. It turns out it was a 3/8 and a 9 millimeter. So you can do the math on that, but odds are you're going to want to go ahead and pull that 9 millimeter out of there and keep that
Absolutely.
3/8
Yep.
and then consolidate it. Well, that was a 6-second tool change. It wasn't a
Wow.
lot, but it was another, well, another part per shift. And
Wow.
you find these little things here and there, and it kept moving it up for them. And they
So
would
there's
never have
mutual
found it.
accountability.
It just aligns incentives. That's the way I
Yeah.
like to say it. But it all kind of keeps playing, and how do you take? I ran one of the machines for a shift. I'm fairly arrogant. If you meet me, you'll understand. If you haven't met me, but I was like, oh, I can run this thing. I have a small machine shop in my house upstairs and a fab shop in my basement. So I also have a sickness. But yeah, I ran this machining center for a half a shift on second to make sure the product was good and I wasn't beating anybody up. Well, anyway, the long and short is it was like a 4.5 minute process and then a 30-second swap out of material. And
Okay.
I was like, I thought I was hot shit. I got it down to 30 seconds. And then the first shift operator came in and he was nailing like 22-second changes just over and over again. I was like, no way. Well, turns out he was doing something I never thought of. It had to do with how you remove the chips off the material to keep them out of the clamping spots.
Okay.
So what'd we do? Well, we took a video of him with a GoPro. We slapped a GoPro on a magnet mount and watched him swap it and then put it right here in their work instructions.
No kidding.
And showed it
That's
to
awesome.
every other person that ever ran that process on all 4 of the stations that were in parallel and instantly disseminated that tribal knowledge to them all. And you just watched it go up in the output.
Wow.
Right? That small change instantly disseminated, and all it was a video upload. This is an example of it's hard to see which side's the positive and which one's the negative. You know how many pictures it was going to take me to show this? Well, I'll tell you, I actually did it. It's right here, right? Like, don't do that, do this. And even that wasn't enough. And that one simple video solved that for everyone who ever put together this
That's
little bit
awesome.
tray system. So anyway, that's the work instruction side of the house, is just guiding people
I
through
love it.
that.
Well,
I
and
know.
as we've got this silver tsunami leaving manufacturing with younger and younger people and taking that tribal knowledge with them, uh, something like this is we have to have. I mean,
It's a very common thing. Yeah.
you've got 40, 50 years worth of knowledge that's about to retire out of some of these facilities, right? And as that knowledge goes, you've got to have some way to capture that so that the people who remain are able to make parts as efficiently and effectively as possible.
I'm a huge fan of interns and apprentices, those two things,
Yeah.
because your apprentice following around, the person is just likely to be a younger person. Doesn't have to be, but that
Yep.
person can, if they're comfortable with a cell phone, can literally document that everything in real time that's happening, create systems like this.
Wow.
And then now you've captured that, but they also learn. A lot of people learn through recording on things like this, typing
Yeah.
in the text. It was a great way to capture it. Interns are free radicals, right? You didn't have them. They show up for the summer and then go away. So they tend to be on smaller projects, but they're also extremely good at things. Imagine arming them with a toolbox like this because it feels
Yeah.
as natural as what they're used to in their regular lives. And so we see a lot of gains for strategies like that as well. But the neat part, if I'm in the back end now, I switched over to the managed page views. This is where things are set up. Here's your Excel view. So, right, this is that same process, and the steps are just shown in kind of like an Excel outline. You can drag them around. If I wanted to rearrange your line balance, I can drag them into a different process. I can drag from a different process into here. I can rearrange my actions. If I want to move that torque action to the step before, I can literally just drag it, and it will take all of the tool configurations with the gang count, the batch count, all of it, right? It's designed to be extremely flexible. That's how you make things 10 times faster. It still takes, taking a picture takes the same amount of time. Type in text, same amount of time. But I can save 100 different ways as you adapt it over time. And that's a really important piece. The design of it over here, like I said, it's designed to feel like PowerPoint so that it's comfortable. Your lines and arrows and shapes and linking systems. Here's those blue text links. Your
Yep.
bill of material is shown at the process level and the step level, videos, images. You can rotate and crop and do all kinds of fun stuff in here. But what's neat about Pico is as we were building over here, it's automatically creating all of this data here. You don't have to create this view at all. All of the traceability data comes automatically. It's organized into tables, and then it has analytics on the backside. Automatically, like literally on its own. So we're in process. We know I'm logged into the station. We know when I started. We know which version of the work instructions they are. You can click one button and a PDF is generated if you need to send them to somebody. But here's all the cycle time data. We're 5 steps in. This is what time we spent. It even knows that I went backwards for a little while. So it automatically tracks that as a review, or a repair. We did it at step 3. We went back for 10 seconds. And then there, when you were asking about the torque step, I went back on 5. Automatically logs that. And that's so you can separate exceptions from regular in your line balance calcs. Here's all the data. Here's the fasteners we shot and all of the torque information. It's automatically capturing everything. So when it's time to do a Kaizen project, you just literally pull up the table. If you really want to get fancy with it, our analytics engine over here, I'll show some real data. This is going to be garbage because it's demo data. But over on like this build of the actual production of these pieces, it'll tell you right out of the gate, we built 52 of them, 9 minutes and 28-second median build time. Here's your time distribution. So, how long it took to build each one. It'll automatically use statistics. Artificial intelligence is for different applications. This is just math. But it says basically a sided distribution model tells us that you had about 1:45 of opportunity here. So you Pareto that across your shop, and then, you just literally go after the continuous improvement. Per step time plots, and you want to know where you're spending your time. It's step 9 by a long shot, followed by what do we got? Step 5 is the second most time consuming. Click back over. 9's got not only more time but high flyers, so there's actually some issues there. You can literally dig in and go figure it out. It's all contextual. Like, it's just really tied together, and that's the idea. So that's how it functions. It's designed to tie the shop floor to the continuous improvement world if you want to go that far. If you just
Awesome.
needed a documentation platform, just really killer work instructions.
So, Ryan, how do people get a hold of you if they are interested, want to learn more about Pico, want to take advantage of the free work instructions? How can people get a hold of you and Pico?
Well, the cool part now is if you don't want to talk to me, you don't have to, which is, as my wife will tell you, is probably the ideal way to go. You can literally go to picomes.com, hit the try for free button, I think, or go into the pricing area, and you can come at it from there. But you can literally click a button and fill out a form that's, I think, your name, your email, and we ask you like 2 questions, like what do you use today? And, excuse me, what type of stuff do you make? Or something like that. And then it'll automatically generate, here's your deployment. It can take anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour to spool up, depending on what you put in for your
That's
name.
it?
So that's it. This is, boom, here you go. Free work instructions. Good luck.
Wow.
Thanks. It's limited to 10 stations. Again, we're not
Sure.
a charity. Or you can hit a different button that says, I think, request demo, or it basically engages you with our team. And then we can answer specific questions. We're happy to fire up a demo, and we can walk you through whatever it is you're trying to solve.
Awesome.
The biggest thing that I hope people realize is do the math as best you can. Like, try to actually understand what opportunities are in your factory. It will shock you. How many people are so complacent with, like I said, one operator A produces 70 parts, operator B produces 60 in a given shift, and they just think operator A is better than operator B. Like, no, that's loss. And, that's 13% loss or whatever the math is on that. And like, you can get that. And it will actually, imagine your world when your labor rate dropped. If you were able to cut out, labor cost by 10%, when you take advantage of that, it's just sitting there in these factories. Wow. And then the other side of Pico is, and you don't have to plan the next 5 years of your life. You can take one step and decide 6 months from now, hey, we want to do something else. Hey, great, but you got started.
Yep.
Right. And let us know how you want us to export everything out of the system. Usually it's PDFs of your work instructions, Excel sheet for all your build data. Bam, it's your data. You still have it. You don't lose anything. And now you're off and running. But take that step.
Take that step. That's an important point. Ryan, thank you very much for being on yet another show with me. Obviously, I enjoy spending time with you and having these conversations. So thanks for being back and joining us. Folks, thank you for joining us on the Manufacturing Connector. I hope you found today's episode absolutely insightful and useful and actionable, because we got a lot from Ryan today. A special thanks again to Ryan Kuhlenbeck from Pico for sharing his expertise and really demonstrating how this tool is leading the charge in automating and optimizing manufacturing operations for small to medium size, but also we heard about some large opportunities as well. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so that you never miss another episode again. Hit the bell icon to get notified every time we release a new video. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions in the comments below. What challenges are you facing in your journey as a manufacturer? What topics would you like us to cover in future episodes? Do you want Ryan to come back and really get into the weeds? Like, do we want Ryan to be the first three-peat offender on one of my shows? Let me know. Also, stay connected with us on social media for more exclusive content and updates. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Remember, at the Manufacturing Connector, we're here to empower you with the latest innovations and insights in the manufacturing world. Join us next time as we continue to explore the future of manufacturing. Until then, keep innovating, keep connecting, and let's see the future of manufacturing, but let's see it today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next episode. Bye.